Hello and welcome to Ruggles Roundup. It's the portion of our Elevated Mission podcast where we talk about all things sports. We're super excited to bring this episode to you. Well, let's jump into Joel Klatt, the top 5 pass catchers in the 2024 NFL draft. And he specifically says pass catchers because he didn't want to limit himself to just wide receivers.
Oh, absolutely. And this has one of the, specifically wide receivers is a deep draft class. And then you got one guy that's going to sneak his way into this list. But we'll start off with number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. I think you can't say enough good things about him.
No. I was just saying that's a shocker, right? That he's number 1.
Oh, yeah. Shocker that he's at number 1. Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he's huge at 6'4", 205 pounds. Joel Klatt that he thinks he may weigh in even more than that. He even said he's going to surprise people with the speed that he's going to show off. And so there's really nothing you can mark down on Marvin Harrison Jr. Amazing hands, route running ability that's beyond many of the other prospects, and has pretty much everything that says this guy is going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, no, there's just no doubt about this guy, talent-wise, that he can do all things from a wide receiver position that you're going to want out of an NFL wide receiver. He's got the pedigree. His dad is a all-time wide receiver, Hall of Fame wide receiver as well. So he understands the culture, the things that have to get done in the NFL, just from a family standpoint. So it's really hard not to have him as your number 1 pass catcher in this draft. I don't think anybody would list him anywhere but 1.
Oh, yeah. He could play anywhere as well. Slot, outside. You can move him all around, and he's going to be effective no matter where you play him at. So it's one of those easy ones that you pick up. Feels like he's going to be one of those guys that's going to have, by the end of his career, going to have one of those Mike Evans like stat lines where it's like, how many 1,000-yard seasons can he have in a row? Because I just think he's going to be that dynamic right off the jump.
Yeah. I mean, and if he puts 20 to 30 pounds on, like you were talking about, this guy almost becomes a pseudo, pass catching tight end when he moves inside. It becomes just a nightmare for, matchups.
He's not much. He wouldn't be much smaller than a guy that we're going to talk about in just a second. Right. Brock Bowers, who I think may even weigh less than what he was listed at 240. Right. So it's definitely an NFL game where he can play that versatile piece off the wing, going in the slot, going to the outside. You can move him all over the field.
Yeah, and maybe Klatt's choice number 2 here on this list, going with Brock Bowers. Maybe that's a surprise to some people. Not a surprise to me. I think this guy's a dynamic football player. I don't care what you want to list him on the roster as. He just knows how to get it done on the offensive side of the ball. He's a good culture guy. He understands winning. And if you bring him into your locker room, I think you're going to be happy.
Oh, the guy had 2,538 yards and 31 touchdowns in his 3 years at Georgia, playing in a run first offense that they play in Georgia. And so he's been one of the most productive tight ends we've ever seen in the college game. And I think he's going to continue to be productive once he gets to the NFL. We were actually talking just last night about the picture between Brock Bowers and next to Gronk. Now, he doesn't look big next to Gronk, but the one thing I noticed that I was just raving to you about was the dude has long arms. And what that means is he's got a big catch radius. He's got glue on his hands, and I think he's going to be able to create those contacts in the red zone, seal it off with his body, and make really nice catches consistently at the NFL level.
Well, you see tight ends in the NFL, they can play basically some NBA ball out there. They can get those box outs and then reach out, extend those arms, and reel those passes in. The quarterbacks on purpose throw it a little bit away from their bodies as they, get those box outs out, especially in the red zone. And it's perfect if the guy's got extra long arms. It becomes almost less relevant how tall he is if he's got those long arms that make him basically that other height, whatever that is. If you're 6'3", but you've got a 6'7" reach, you're 6'7", when you're playing on the football field. So yeah, those arms, when you showed me that in the picture, those arms look really long, and that's a big plus for this guy. But I mean, if he drops in the draft, any further than the Chargers, I just think Jim Harbaugh is going to see that, and he's going to say, that's a weapon that I can use in this offense out here in San Diego. This tells you what an old timer I am, in Los Angeles. And he's going to be in a Charger uniform if he drops there. I think, the draft's always crazy what happens, but we'll see. I don't think he drops beyond that.
Yeah, I saw this player comp, and now it's always hard to make player comps, but I thought this one was a really good one, and I can't get it out of my head as not personality wise, as I don't want to bring up the off the field stuff, but the on the field stuff that Aaron Hernandez brought. I think Brock Bowers can actually bring a lot of those same things. He's that little bit of undersized, but can still get out there and block, and he's that speedy tight end that's really hard to cover when you're talking about that tight end linebacker matchup. And I think he's going to be able to go out there and do a lot of the similar things that Aaron Hernandez did when he was with the Patriots, being able to spread that defense. And also you could see Brock Bowers, moving all around the field like they used him in that Patriots offense.
For sure. Yeah. On the field, that's a good comp. At the college level, that's how, he looked for Georgia. And so I expect him to be a very productive player at the next level here. And so another great pass catcher. And so I don't have any problems so far with Joel Klatt's list, 1 and 2. Let's get into where probably things start shifting in different people's lists.
Oh, absolutely. Number 3, Rome Odunze out of Washington. I mean, we're talking about a guy that is a deep ball artist. I love his ability to get open on the deep balls, and it made Michael Penix Jr. look really good a lot of the time, as he's just able to speed pass guys at really nice size. And then even once you get him on those deep balls, he's able to make consistent contested catches, jump balls 40 yards down the field, and make a quarterback's life easy.
Absolutely. When you've got a guy like that out there making catches for you, you rest easy a little bit when you throw that ball as a quarterback, knowing, hey man, I believe he's going to come down with this thing when I release this. And so, he's going to be a nice player at this next level. I think the biggest thing, and Joel Klatt alluded to this when he released this list, is that some of these guys may get slightly hurt because of the depth of this class, that they might drop a little bit further down in the draft. I don't know about these top 3 guys, but they might drop a little bit further down in the draft just because teams are going to go, you know what, I can get good receivers later in the draft. Why am I going to spend a high draft pick, on this guy, even though I know he's a dynamic player, but I got another dynamic player I can pick up in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Oh, yeah. And I think then we can kind of get into this debate because I think there's a steep drop off after this number 4, Malik Neighbors. I think we can kind of have this argument between Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, who we think is better, as I think they're both very explosive wide receivers that showed really good dynamic play at the college game, but they're very different to each other. You don't nearly have the size. I mean, Malik Neighbors is still 6 foot, but he doesn't have that size that Rome Odunze has, but he seems to be more of the polished route runner, has a few more releases off of press that Rome Odunze doesn't have, and that's why I prefer Malik Neighbors. I love a guy that can get open with his feet, and Malik Neighbors consistently gets open with the footwork that he brings onto the football field. So I would have moved Malik Neighbors up to my number 3 spot and dropped Odunze to my number 4 on this list. But I think if you love size, which size has been proven to be a huge help as a wide receiver, you got to lean a little bit more towards Odunze because he's got a lot more of that contested catchability.
100%. And I think most of the lists I've been seeing, I've seen a lot of Neighbors in that 2nd place slot, right behind Marvin Harris Jr., because they haven't put Brock Bowers in this list, right? They'll usually
Yeah.
have him in a tight end list, and then it's him, and then everybody else, in the tight end, draft. And then, but in putting him in this list, I like putting him at number 2. Yeah, Neighbors in most lists has been coming out at that number 2 slot, or in this list because of Bowers being included in that number 3 spot, but I don't hate what Klatt's done here because, like you said, that size is a difference maker. We've seen guys that didn't even really have a super high production at the college level, just have size and ability to catch, and then have just been, stalwarts in the NFL because now all of a sudden they get used in a little different system and they really can just help. We've talked about this before, but if you've got that guy in the middle that can come and he can get those mismatches with the linebackers, or he can in the red zone he can get you those tough catches. That really matters, and size is a lot of what makes that happen. And so I don't hate what he's done here, but I think you could flip-flop that 4 and 5 easily and feel really good about that if you're the evaluator of the draft.
Oh, absolutely. Now, probably the biggest, question mark of this draft then comes at number 5, as I feel like everybody can agree that I think the best pass catchers are these top 4 guys: Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. But at number 5, he put Keon Coleman out of Florida State. I think that it's a good spot for Keon Coleman, but he's a guy that didn't didn't make any. He just doesn't get open the way you want to see at the college game. He feels like he always has a guy just draped on him as he's going down the field, and it's consistent contested catches every single time. And you see those guys not be able to usually make it into the NFL level because they can't separate. The DBs at the NFL level are that next level kind of coverage, and they're just not even going to let the ball get to the hands of Keon Coleman if he's not able to learn how to get that extra separation at the NFL.
This is a guy that was a dual sport athlete at Michigan State before he transfers to Florida State, playing basketball and football. So he's still a little bit rough around the edges in the football game. I mean, I think he's got huge upsides as far as his athleticism and his ability to do things if that all comes together. We always get these guys in the draft where you're kind of going, okay, this guy's ceiling is tremendous. Does he ever get to that ceiling? I'm a big fan of finding guys that you see it on the field at the college level that's consistent with there's production usually then at the NFL level. You know, when you get these guys that, man, if they put it all together, a lot of times you're still like talking about it 10 years later. Man, if that guy would have ever put it all together, he would have been amazing. But I like Coleman. I'd like to see him, be that elite wide receiver in the NFL, but we're just not going to know for at least 1 year here as he goes into the rookie season, but maybe even a couple years as he learns the NFL game and grows and develops. So I hope he gets to a coaching staff that's really good at developing wide receivers, as I think he's still a little bit raw as a receiver.
I mean, we see the quickness, we see the explosive play ability, especially when you look at his punt returns. That's what really gave me hope. Is I saw him on punt return. He has the wiggle. He has the ability to shake dudes and make them miss, and that translates into your route running. Even though he's not doing it in his route running, he's juking guys out. He's making plays with his feet, and so that gave me promise in his being able to develop as a route runner. And then also, I just went through a lot of, because Keon Coleman's probably the wide receiver I've watched the most tape on, because he's just the guy of the most like interesting prospect of this one.
Yeah.
And Florida State gave him the most boring route tree of all time. He got the DK Metcalf route tree. He ran a comeback, he ran a vert, and he ran a slant every once in a while. It was mostly only comebacks and verts was all he ran at Florida State. And so it was a very predictable route tree that they had him. And so it's you kind of go towards that and you're like, Well, if you give him a little bit more, you place him in the slot. I mean, he's a punt returner. Get him on some jet sweeps, move him around the field a lot more. You can find places to use a Keon Coleman at an effective level, even as a rookie, I think, especially in the slot. He might not be that elite outside wide receiver just yet, but I think in a few years, he can definitely develop into that outside guy that can be consistently making plays for you.
Well, that's always the key, right? Coaches that know how to put their athletes in the right spots with the right routes, doing the things that utilize their athleticism at their best. That's half the battle with these guys. They're all super talented athletes, right? These guys that get drafted, that are playing in the NFL, they're all super talented. It's, did you get into the right place where the coaches believe in you, recognize your talents, it works within their system, and then you take advantage of that. Sometimes it's about effort, sometimes it's about attitude, a whole bunch of times it's also about the right fit and the right coaches utilizing that talent. So yeah, I think if he gets into a coaching staff that utilizes him well, and and again trains him up as a wide receiver to develop that game to that next level, then watch out for Coleman. He'll be a special player for sure.
Oh yeah, but I think guy who's more right now ready, that actually Joe Klatt put in his honorable mention. I'll just go over all of his honorable mention real
Yeah.
quick. He had Brian Thomas Jr., Troy Franklin out of Oregon, Lad McConkey out of Georgia. Uh, I Mitchell out of Texas. I don't know how to say
Yeah.
his
How you pronounce his first name? Yeah.
and then Tez Walker out of North Carolina were those top guys. But I am a huge fan of Brian Thomas Jr. He had a really nice season in 2023, 1,000 yards as the wide receiver 2. You're talking 17.3 yards per catch at 6'4", 205 pounds, and I think he's going to weigh in at even heavier than that when if he weighs in at the combine. And he's just a very impressive physical attributes. I expected a little bit more to get put together earlier in his career, but I mean, it all came together, it felt like, in 2023.
Yeah, he's definitely a nice prospect. And again, like we talked about a little bit earlier, these guys make it easier to say, you know what, I won't go wide receiver in the first round. I'll wait for second or third round because maybe one of these guys is still available. The guy I'll point out is McConkey. He is a really good player. He's sitting there not getting number one touches because you got Bowers on the field, but a really special player, can play at the next level. And if he gets into the right situation, watch him to be on some Pro Bowl lists coming out right away. He knows how to be a winner again on the football field.
As well as Brock Bowers not only is the number one option, but I think takes away the routes that would be where Lad McConkey would thrive, which is that over the middle of the field, running those quick little decision routes where you have the choice where he's 10 yards. Does he go over the middle? Does he run it out? Does he go up the middle? I think he's one of those guys that the field will really open up for him, not playing alongside a guy that takes up so much room over the middle.
Yeah, for sure. I think, watch for him if he gets in the right situation to look like more than he was at the college level. It's always surprising when a guy actually ups his game at the NFL level versus what he did at the college level. But again, you just where you're at in this system.
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge Tez Walker fan as well.
Stud.
I think he brings in a really good, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's got the body for it. He has really good yards per reception at 17 yards per reception. He kind of took a step back this last year as he was at 900 yards in 2022 and only got to 700 yards in this past season. But he's a guy that goes out there and makes plays. I love his contested catch rate, and I think he's going to be a dynamic player that may fall in the draft to a really, really good team. Like if he goes to a Chiefs, one of those top teams that has a quarterback already established, which I think he may end up falling to, he's going to be a really dynamic player for that team.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. Well, it's going to be interesting as we move on in this pre-draft process. Guys are all at, they're at their pre-combine, specialists out there working on how to basically become almost like a track athlete, how to run that fastest 40 time. They're working on their route running. They're also working on their explosion and their strength, and they're working with all these guys just to get ready for these pro days and these combines. And, we're going to see what happens with that, and that'll all affect their draft prospects as well. And so, but then I can't wait for next fall, seeing these guys on the NFL field and seeing what they can do. But nice list, Joel Klatt. I think he did a pretty good job with this. Well, thank you for watching and listening to Ruggles Roundup on the Elevated Mission podcast. Make sure if you're on YouTube, you click the subscribe and you click the like button. We love that you're out there listening and watching us talk about all things sports. We'll see you next time.